This week on the Retirement Quick Tips podcast, I'm talking about the all too common problem of being too frugal and underspending in retirement, how this frugality can rob you of a fulfilling retirement, and steps you can take to find a better balance with both spending while preserving financial security in retirement. Today, I want to talk about generosity because when you practice that consistently, it can help relieve a tendency towards over frugality in retirement. So, I want to start by talking about the default position and what I see most often with people. This is tricky because I don't want to condemn anybody or be judgmental in any way because I know the lack of generosity often comes from this fear of, well, if I give it all away now, what if I need it later on and it's not going to be there for me? And I get that. And like everything else I've talked about this week, there's balance in that. So you don't want to like give away everything during your lifetime and run the risk of running out of money. That would be very imprudent. But finding that balance can relieve a tendency towards over frugality in retirement and dying with way too much money, well in excess of what you needed. So I think one of the things that helps with this is to look back at the end of your life and you say, okay, I'm on track right now. It's a fairly easy math problem to figure out. There are tons of variables, but on my current trajectory, what is my projected net worth portfolio value at the end of my life? So when I get to my life expectancy, which for many of you is going to be in your mid to late 80s, you could even take it out to 90 years old. What am I projected to have? And many of you, your portfolio value is going to end up being higher than what it is today, even if you're already retired, because you don't withdraw too much. The money keeps growing. And if those withdrawals are less than the growth on average every year, then you're going to see your investments grow in value. And I would say that's what happens in most situations of people who have a nest egg that is sustaining them and providing them with income in retirement. Obviously, there's a huge group of Americans that don't have financial assets to draw from in retirement, and this doesn't apply. But for many of you listening, it applies. There's this quote that I love from Randy Alcorn. I may not get this exactly right, but he says, death is not your best opportunity to give, it's your last opportunity to give, which implies that there are better times during your life to be giving, not just to charitable organizations or your church, which is important, and we should all be giving consistently to those organizations and causes we care about. I would encourage you, if you're not doing that right now, to just start small, but give 2, 3, 4, 5% of your income every year to charitable causes because it forces you to not be so miserly. Many of us are way too miserly with our money, and we need to open our arms, let it out, let it go a little bit, and you'll find that it pays a lot of dividends in terms of you actually getting to enjoy the money you give. Most people, if they give money away to charity or causes, they do so at their death. And they never get to see the fruits of that. And I think that's sad. There's this book called, many of you may be familiar with it. If you find that you're maybe too frugal, maybe I would suggest reading it. It's called Die with Zero. But there's a concept that the author talks about in the book about giving and how giving earlier in life has more of an impact than giving at the end. So if you think about a typical inheritance, most people are going to inherit money sometime in their 50s or 60s. You know, mom and dad die in their 80s or even 90s. That's a really common age to receive an inheritance. But what's interesting about that for many people, sure, it can help boost your nest egg significantly at exactly the right time as you're approaching or entering or living in retirement. But if you think back on all the things that you or your children may have needed or could have benefited from front loading that inheritance, there are so many challenges that we face earlier in life where giving more consistently over time, both to charity and to your children or loved ones, could have provided a much greater benefit. I'm not talking about financially supporting or being used as a consistent like bank of mom and dad. That's not what I'm talking about, because I think that there's a whole host of problems with providing too much financial support to adult children. But there are certain life milestones where an adult child can benefit greatly from a front loading of some of those inheritance money. So, a perfect example would be what a lot of Americans are struggling with right now: too much student loan debt, not being able to afford to buy a house, not being able to save for a down payment. Maybe they want to start a family and our financial reasons are why they're not doing that. So, can you set up a college fund for your grandchildren? Can you provide a gift for your child to enable them to afford to stay home for the first year or two and not be forced to go back to work? So then they feel like it is possible for them to have children and being able to financially do that. So those are just a few examples, but there are so many opportunities early in life, like in your 20s and 30s, where financial roadblocks hold people back, and parents, for sometimes justified reasons, are not able to support them or help them. But oftentimes it's like, well, they'll get their inheritance later and they need to figure it out. And I agree somewhat with that sentiment. But at the same time, a lot of times when someone receives an inheritance, it's like, I'm in the best financial shape of my life in my 50s and 60s. It would have been nice to have maybe less overall, but have more consistent help over a longer period of time, or when I really needed it the most. And then with giving, personally, I find that giving helps to establish right order of spending. So I'm not spending everything selfishly on myself or my family. I'm prioritizing my community, my church, others' needs, causes I care about. I think that that's very important. So if you are afraid to give either to your children or charities or both, I would encourage you to start small. Start with offering to make a small contribution. Help set up a college fund for your grandchild. Give some money to a local cause that you care a lot about. There's this principle in Catholic social teaching. I'm Catholic, and it's the principle of subsidiarity. Basically, what it suggests is that if you're going to give money or if you're going to make decisions, you want to do so at the smallest level possible. So if you think of, like, if I give money to this big international or national organization, that's just a drop in the bucket. And they're usually pretty big and bureaucratic anyways. It's hard to see your money at work. But if you give at the smallest level possible, like something local in your community or your church that you attend or something like that, you're going to see the fruits of that giving. I've seen in our own church giving to build a new parish center, giving to put up new stations of the cross, giving to make some other changes, and just supporting the Catholic education for other kids who attend the school whose parents can't afford to send them to school, but subsidizing that. So there are all these ways where you can see the fruits of your giving every day if you practice that principle of subsidiary and local giving that has the greatest impact. So a couple of action steps or thoughts would be to make sure you're building generosity into your retirement plan and your spending plan. Consider helping your adult children earlier in life with important and big expenses like buying a house, education, life milestones. Support local charities or your church as often as possible and consistently. And use your generosity as a mindset shift. Your money can do good now, and you get to see the fruits of those good things. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Ashley Michike, and this is the Retirement Quick Tips Podcast.